This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
This year marks the 150th anniversary of the Transcontinental Railroad. And the Transcontinental Railroad, let me tell you, 150 years ago, 125 years ago, 170 years ago, the 19th century, this is all people were talking about. This was the whole focus of the country, was connecting the two sides of this nation with a railroad. And lots of stories tied up there, but let me tell you, Kansas is smack dab in the middle of it. So let's take a look at the railroads crisscrossing Kansas.
For the history of railroads in Kansas, we turn to the pages of the Kansas State Historical Society. The online resource, Kansas Memory, is a seemingly endless supply of information and photographs. The KSHS tells us that the rapid growth of railroads after the Civil War was both a response to an existing need and an attempt to meet the challenge of future development. The frontier was pushing across the Kansas plains. 49ers had begun the settlement of Colorado and other areas of the Mountain West, and the Pacific Coast was already an important and growing market. To link these widespread regions with one another and with eastern markets, fast and reliable transportation was needed. The railroad was the ready and obvious answer. Kansas businessmen and political leaders, even before the Civil War, dreamed of rail systems that would connect their infant cities with every place of importance in the nation. However, they soon learned that private enterprise alone could not finance such costly undertakings. Particularly in those areas where settlement was sparse and investment capital was slow in yielding returns, it was found that governmental assistance was necessary. Support came in the form of land grants, sometimes cash, from the federal and state governments, and from city, county, and township bond issues, which were exchanged for railroad stock and a promise that the company would build their way. Financial problems and physical hazards might easily have discouraged men of less determination. The Union Pacific Railway Company Eastern Division was organized in 1863. Some construction work immediately began near Wyandotte. However, only after later generous grants from the U.S. government did the work of laying track get underway. The railroad began operation in 1866. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway, originally organized in 1859, began laying track in 1868. By 1872, the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe track reached the western border of Kansas. The Missouri-Kansas-Texas Railroad was incorporated in 1870, spurred by the promise of federal land grant money if it could be the first railroad to reach the Kansas border from the Neosho Valley in the south. The land grants were never realized, but the railroad continued to push southward, connecting Kansas to the Gulf of Mexico. In the process, it acquired numerous smaller rail lines in Missouri. Great celebrations greeted railroad officials and construction crews as the tracks reached more and more distant towns. Often a town's survival depended on whether or not it was serviced by a railroad line. Tracks required continual maintenance to remain safe. Section crews were responsible for the upkeep of 6 to 8 mile stretches of track. These were the hardest railroad jobs, often the only jobs available to new immigrants. Railroad yards ranged from tiny fueling stations to huge industrial complexes at major centers like Topeka. The railroads developed promotional campaigns to encourage settlement in Kansas. Their offers included free or reduced rate transportation to potential buyers. Many settlers on railroad land, especially those from overseas, could bring all their household goods at the company's expense.
Been great having you with us this morning. Tune in next week and I'll see you somewhere around Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
Hollyhocks and red ripe tomatoes, hand-churned homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. We're the best part of Dorothy Stream.